Welcome to the Next Pitch podcast, hosted by Kate Love.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the 10th episode of the Next Pitch podcast. I'm Kate, and I am here with Lucas Still, our producer. Lucas, how are you doing?
Doing well, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. It's been a hectic weekend here. My family is in town. My little cousin played in the spring game for Texas Tech football. Very proud of him. Also very proud because somehow he got assigned randomly the jersey number 69, which I think is the funniest thing in the world.
You didn't pick
So
that
I'm
one?
enjoying that. He didn't. No, he said he got there. So my cousin's a walk-on, and he got there, and in his locker they just had a jersey for him. And he texted us after his first practice, and he was like, "You'll never guess what number I am." And then I kept thinking, like, okay, if he gets the opportunity to like play or like do anything, they'll reassign it, and they have not. So I think he's gonna be number 69 for the foreseeable future.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. He said a couple of students in the stands were yelling at him about it. So, and 69 is actually retired defensively for Texas Tech, but he's on the offensive line. So that was a lot of fun. And then we celebrated my sister's birthday. So by the time this episode drops, it will be actually my sister's birthday. So happy birthday, Taylor.
Happy birthday, Taylor.
She thinks she's a part of the show. She
She
thinks
is.
she thinks she's a star. So if I don't mention her in an episode, she's like, "What are you doing? Give the people what they want." So,
Definitely.
yeah, so she is 28 today, and yeah, it should be a good day. I know that last night you were watching the Jake Paul fight. Was the
Yeah.
wait as brutal as Twitter made it out to be?
Yeah, so there's the Jake Paul Triller boxing, we'll call it a circus night, going on at the same time as UFC fight night was going on. So I was able to kind of switch back and forth, and the UFC fights were good as always. Whitaker won. Nothing too crazy on that end, but yeah, it was flipping back and forth, and you go back to the Jake Paul show and it'd be like Ric Flair officiating a slap contest, and then you're like, what? And you flip back, and you come back, and then it's Justin Bieber performing. And I was like, I didn't realize I was watching a concert, but it took. I thought they were gonna fight at like 8 p.m. and then they didn't start fighting until like 10. But yeah, there's a lot of controversy on Twitter over whether they stopped the fight too early. But I mean, honestly, Askren got his shit rocked, and he did not look like he could stand up. He was wobbling, and I think they called it fairly. And I was talking to you earlier about how, kind of a hot take, I guess, on my part, this kind of proved to me a theory that I've kind of had, just about how, taking nothing away from professional athletes, obviously they're very good, but I think the average person puts pro athletes on this pedestal, almost like this untouchable, godlike figures. And yes, they're very, very good, but they're also human. Like, I know going into that
Right.
fight, a bunch of people were like, oh, there's no way Asker's going to lose. He's a professional fighter. Jake Paul's just like a regular dude. And whether or not Jake Paul is better or worse, like, he won the fight, like, I just think there's always a chance from like the average athletic person going up against pro athletes. Like, at OA, we see a bunch of pros and college guys intermix, and the pro guys don't always win, whether it's live ABs or whatnot. Like, yeah, that's just a theory I've had, and we've debated a lot at school. But I don't know, what do you think about that?
It's interesting. You saying that, this just popped in my head. A guy that we had at Drive Lane, Josh Lang, he posted a question not that long ago and said, "Do you think you could take LeBron James one-on-one if you had, like, what do you think would give you better odds?
Mm-hmm.
LeBron James's build with your athletic ability or
Okay.
your build with LeBron James's basketball ability?"
Well, I'd probably go with the second one. I mean, I'm 6'5", so I'm not a shrimp on that one, but I like that question. I think so. Something that we actually debated at Westmont at practice, we had a couple of questions that was always going around, was if Westmont played a MLB schedule, 162 games, could we scratch out and win one game? And I always said yes, And my teammates thought I was crazy. Like, I don't get me wrong, I know we're gonna get killed a lot of the times, and I know that we would not win many games, but 162 games, like, and also Westmont, we weren't just like, scrubs. Like, our starting rotation was a bunch of guys, 88 to 90. Our closer was up to 95. He got drafted. We had our second baseman get signed with the Angels. Like, we had a pretty good team. And my teammates thought I was absolutely crazy. And I actually ran that question by Bauer a couple of years ago. And he was like, oh, 100%. You guys could definitely win one game. So coming from that side, kind of
If you're
giving me
talking about one, yeah, I think there's always a
just one.
chance. And I think the other thing is like, yes, athletes are usually like pro athletes are usually like incredibly talented athletically, but really what sets like most of them apart is their dedication, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
It, yeah, their dedication and also like their consistency. Like, that's what I was talking to
mhm.
my buddy today about, how he went to Sac State and played with Reese Hoskins, who's now, one of the best players in the Phillies. And on that team also with Sam Long, who now is probably going to crack the big leagues either this year or next year. And in inter squad, Brandon owns Sam Long. And he has that ability to beat him. It's just these guys do it day in and day out. And again, I'll finish that up with saying these athletes are really, really good and a lot better at sports than I am. I just think that and they're not automatic. They're not robots. You watch them miss shots in warmups in basketball. They sometimes roll over in batting practice. Sometimes pitchers throw balls. It's just not a guaranteed thing that they would win every single time. I think football might be a little bit different, just because I don't know if the average person could go and beat an NFL team. But a sport
Yeah.
like baseball, where the pitcher has so much impact on the game, if you're facing a guy who just gets the yips one game and walks the bases loaded, and then you get a bleeder that goes through, you could score a couple runs. So
Or it
yeah.
happened tonight in the Cubs game. The guy hit two batters in a row, loading the
Mm-hmm.
bases, and then gave up a grand slam. So it was a
So
big game. Well, a big momentum shift, I should say.
yeah.
I don't know if it was a
So
game changer. The Cubs were already ahead.
final statement: these athletes are really, really good, but they are human. That's what I'll end it on. But I know that you watched some fight, or not fights, sorry, some races. Was that yesterday? 2 days ago.
Today, yeah, they
Yesterday.
raced this morning. They race early on Saturday or early on Sunday mornings, qualifying on Saturday, and then practices on Friday. And because I am a nerd, I like to watch as many sessions as possible and kind of see if I can figure out what the strategy going into the race is going to be. But yeah, they raced at Imola this weekend, which is a pretty historic track in F1. It's a very old school track. Um, it's not really built for cars like the way the cars are now. So it was really interesting because the guys had a really hard time staying on the track, especially with the like decreased downforce, the rules that like decrease the downforce on the cars. So lots of guys off track. Yesterday, the FIA had their finger on the delete button all day. They were deleting times constantly for violating track limits, which is just wild. So I'm a McLaren fan. Lando should have qualified P2, but they deleted his best track time. So he actually qualified P7, but it's okay because
Mm-hmm.
he ended up on a podium. A very, very wet race, a very messy race. Lots of Latifi crashed early in the race. Lewis Hamilton slid off the track into the gravel. And I told you earlier he gave a little love tap to the wall. So I don't think he really had any damage and he didn't hit the wall hard. He had slowed down considerably, but he did like hit the wall. So it took him a minute to get back out of the gravel and onto the track. And then shortly after that happened, George Russell for Williams was trying to get past Valtteri Bottas. Bottas says he took the dry racing line because it was wet, it's raining. So he's taking the dry line on the track. He comes back to the right. Russell has DRS activated, so he's going 30 miles an hour faster. I don't, it looked like a racing incident to me. Like, I don't know if you can really say one was at fault. Total Wolf said
Mm-hmm.
maybe 60-40, but he didn't know which way he would give the 60-40. And it was a very ugly crash. Valtteri bounced off of the wall on the left side of the track all the way back to the wall on the right side of the track. George just went straight to the right, but it was the kind of thing you hold your breath through. So glad they're both
Yeah.
okay. That wreck happening. So Lewis was in ninth place and the safety car came out. When a safety car comes out and they stop the race and then they restart, everyone's real close back together. And it gave Lewis the opportunity to get all the way back up to second. So Max Verstappen and Red Bull won today, but it was a big day for constructors because it could have been a very, very devastating day for Mercedes if
Right.
Lewis, without that safety car, it's highly unlikely Lewis gets back up, I would say, into even the top 6 positions, and Red Bull would have had a nice little lead on them. So it ended up being a really, really fun race. Everyone walked away safely. That's what matters at the end of the day.
Hmm.
I cannot believe, as competitive of a person as I am, that just came out of my mouth, but it does. It's like, it's so crazy because I always worry about safety in every sport, but becoming a Formula One fan has just taken it to the next level. So,
Yeah, those are definitely, you talk about baseball being a game of inches or football being a game of inches. Like you talk about going into back to Formula One, where one little thing goes a little differently, and it could be the difference in life or death, which I guess technically could happen in other sports, but I guess the risk factor is a lot higher and a lot more present with that. So the fact that everyone was good in one piece and no, fatal crashes is definitely a good thing.
yeah, that track is known. So, Ayrton Senna died at that track. That's where his fatal wreck was. And that weekend, there were 2 fatalities. There's one in qualifying, one in the race. There were 2 wrecks in qualifying, and right off the start, there was a horrible wreck. Um, that I it just blows my mind that they raced that day. And maybe I'm just like naive, but I just felt like all the warning signs were there, like, hey, maybe you don't proceed with this. But
Right.
so I was really nervous about this track, and then with it being wet always causes chaos, which makes for entertaining races, but not the safest. So we are very thankful everyone got off safely. The rain moved out halfway through it. People were able to move to their slicks. So yeah, it ended
Good.
up being a great race.
Nice.
Other interesting things that have happened this week. Since we took last week off, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but in the span of 1 week, we have had 2 no-hitters thrown. And
Two
not
no
only
hitters.
not only did Joe Musgrove make history in throwing the first no-hitter in the Padres franchise history, which by the way is his hometown team, mind blowing, but it's
Oh
also the first no-hitter thrown in the new Globe Life Stadium.
yeah, that's awesome. I didn't think about
Yeah.
that.
I was kind of sad he didn't get to do it in San Diego. I always wish those moments like happened at home or like close to that player's like hometown.
Right.
And so since he's playing for his hometown team, it's just like you double wish that moment happened in San Diego, but my God, how special.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll take it either way, right?
Right. And then Carlos Rodon for the White Sox.
That was so I was watching. Did you get to watch that one? Were you watching it live?
No, I don't remember what day he did that, but we were doing something and I got onto Twitter and all of a sudden like no hitter was trending and I was like, what
Yeah.
is happening?
So I mean, obviously this takes nothing away from the no hitter, but he actually had a perfect game with one out in the ninth.
Okay, I did
And
see that it was like inches away from
yeah,
being perfect.
he had 2 strikes. I forget who the batter was, but he yanks a slider that got the top of his foot. Like it wasn't, the hitter leaning out over the plate or anything. Like he yanked it. Obviously, you wish it didn't happen because you're like, that's not what you want to break up the perfect game. But that was the only base runner. So besides that, besides hitting a guy at the top of the shoe, uh, perfect game, but it was a no hitter. But that's what he said in the post game interview. He was like, Carlos, like, you were down because he had Tommy John. I forget his full story, but he was talking about how he had moments where he wasn't sure if he was gonna keep playing baseball. And to come back and to do that, and they were like, "Where's your mind right now? Like, what are you thinking about?" And he's like, "All I'm thinking about is a ball on the top of the foot." But I mean, obviously he'll take it, throwing a no hitter, and he had a pitch at 99 in the last inning too, so he's had a lot of juice left in the tank. But that was pretty cool to see.
Those are such bittersweet moments. Yeah, I was telling you, I don't know if we caught it in the recording. I'd have to go back and listen to the last episode, but I know Gio told us that he thought Rodon was going to be really special this year. So it was kind of neat to see
Hmm.
that moment happen right after having that conversation. And that always makes me think like if you're gonna if you're going to lose a perfect game, right? And like get the no-hitter, I'd rather do it like in the fifth, you
And
know?
at the last minute.
Yeah, not be 25 outs into a game and
Yeah.
you
So I
know.
think I want to say I have to go back and listen to, but I want to say Gio said something about Ethan Katz having a role in kind of seeing Carlos early this year and being like, okay, he's got a lot of tools. We're going to make some small tweaks, and he should kind of be back to his old self. I'll have to go back and check that. But on the thing about losing the perfect game, we've seen it a couple times already this year where guys will take that perfect game and or no hitters like the fifth or sixth, and then they lose it, and then the wheels fall off, and they give up 4 runs that inning. I'm pretty sure that happened
Mhm.
to Bauer in one of his first starts. But so kudos to Rodon being able to deal with the feelings of losing the perfect game that close and still lock down and get the last 2 outs for the no hitter.
Right, just compartmentalize and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of people that are not dealing with things well and not compartmentalizing, Yankees fans this weekend. Oh my god. Whew, it has been a trip on Twitter. I cannot believe. I mean, I can believe like getting swept by the Rays should feel normal to them by now. Uh,
I don't know
that's
about
just a
that.
little jab in there, but yeah, I
I'm
thought
telling Randy you said that.
yeah, he'll know. He's had to listen to me already, but yeah, I thought so I was telling you Saturday I was watching Glasnow start against the Yankees and he was not having a great game and I just thought okay, the Yankees are like they're figuring it out, right? Like they got beat 8-2 last night, like the Rays aren't going to be able to piece this one together. And then Glasnow would like load the bases and get out of it. And he was at like he threw like 30 something pitches in the first and then still got
Mhm.
through 5. I was shocked.
Wow.
And then they won 6-3. The Rays won 6-3. And I just yeah, Yankees fans are calling for Cashman's head. Yankees fans are blaming Boone for everything. I saw a tweet that said Cashman has a $200 million budget, and all he did was take last year's last year's team and add 2 injured starting pitchers, and I died laughing. But it's so wild because we've talked so much about the AL West or the AL East, and I told you that I thought it was going to be a 3-horse race. I thought, and we're early in the season, like
Yeah.
it's not time to panic yet. But I told you I thought that that division was going to come down to 3 teams, and 2 of those teams are sitting at the bottom of the division.
Yeah. As I mean, as you said, obviously it's still early, but I don't think any Yankees fan is used to this amount of losing this consistently. So
Yeah.
especially with the amount of talent they have over there. But we'll see how things shake up here at the end of the year.
Well,
But
and I just don't think it's helping that the Red Sox are having success when basically we all wrote them off before the season even
yeah,
began. So,
definitely. Um, but anyways, this week I was not able to join you, but we got a pretty good episode ahead with the baseball Brit. You want to tell us
yeah.
a little about who that is and what he does?
Yeah, so his name is Joey Mellows, and Lucas wasn't able to get on with us because there is a 14-hour time difference between where we live. And so he was recording at 9 p.m. in South Korea. I was recording at 7 a.m. in Texas, and Lucas was happily sleeping at 5 a.m. in California. So, yeah, Joey is a British man who moved to Korea to teach and at a British school in Korea. And while he was in Korea, he really kind of fell in love with the sport of baseball. And I'll let you listen to the episode and tell you how he ended up in the US. But basically, he had this big life altering event and ended up in the United States and thought, I'm just going to spend my life savings trying to
Mm-hmm.
go to all these baseball. So his goal was to go to every major league stadium. And then I think he tried to go to 162 games over the course of the season, which is just like mind blowing to think of. I spend a
Wish I
lot
could
of
do
time
that.
at ballparks and I Oh man, that's a lot.
I mean, I wish I had
Uh,
that time to do that,
yeah. I think it's different when it's like your job, but and then just the travel in between. And so yeah, he decided that he really wanted to bring like some awareness and share the love of baseball he had with everyone, and he's built a social media following. He said initially his goal was to like bring awareness and like the love of baseball to Brits, and it turns out most of his followers are American. So
you know?
it's kind of shifted since then, but he's really
Ah,
integrated himself in the baseball community. He is currently going around Korea and going to all of the stadiums there, and it's kind of fun to see him walk through that. But tickets in Korea right now are like gold because they're still on
mm,
pretty strict coronavirus limits.
right.
So yeah, he shared a lot of his story about how he ended up doing that, why he fell in love with the game of baseball. And then he caught me off guard with a couple of questions um, about my favorite
Hmm.
baseball parks and jerseys, and that was one I had not thought of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, some questions, and listening back and editing it, I was definitely shocked at some of his answers. So hopefully the people at home will get a kick out of some of the things he has to say. So you want to get into it?
absolutely. Joe, how's it going? How are you doing?
I'm doing terrific, thanks. Yeah, Sunday night here in Korea and just got back from a weekend watching baseball. So yeah, thrilled to bits.
I know we are on a 14-hour time difference, so you are going to be getting ready for bed, and I had a very early wake up call this morning. But I am so glad that you're here. I'm so glad you agreed to come on. Where were you this weekend watching baseball?
I was in Gwangju this weekend. It's a city to the southwest of South Korea, home of the Kia Tigers. They've won the most championships in KBO history. They've won 11. So I was watching them play the NC Dinos, the reigning champs. So it's quite a good matchup.
Okay, and you live in Korea now, full time.
Yeah, I moved back to Seoul in September, and I'm here at least until next June 2022.
And you're a teacher there.
Yeah, I teach economics here at a British school. There's a school in London, and they have franchises, I guess you'd call them. So yeah, I'm at the London one in Seoul, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so tell us a little bit about how you got into this whole baseball fandom, because you grew up in England. Your dad, you just told me, was a professional soccer player. And I think the first time you spent significant time in the States was to coach soccer, right?
Yeah, I spent a summer coaching soccer in Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex.
Mhm.
Um, my father used to play professionally, and he's got a friend that has a coaching school in Dallas. So I went over there. I was researching my thesis, my undergraduate thesis on tipping culture, whether Americans do it out of economic necessity because they know they're getting paid below minimum wage, or whether they do it because it's a social norm. They're just scared to not fit in by not tipping. So I was researching that, coaching soccer. Didn't watch any baseball, didn't know anything about baseball until I moved to Korea when I was 29. And that was about 6, 7 years ago now.
So you got into baseball because of the KBO.
Yeah, I just got into baseball because it's huge in Korea and also in Japan. And as part of the culture, I wanted to try and understand more about where I was living. So it's on like every single TV channel, sports channel, every night. It's got like 5 different games on. So you can't really miss it. And I became curious and then saw my first game in Japan in 2015 on holiday, and then came back to where I live in Seoul and began going pretty much every night.
How different was the environment? Because the KBO is known for having these insane environments. Like the fans are all in every single pitch, every play. How different is the KBO from Japanese baseball?
That's a good question. They're both really loud, really loud. When COVID's not happening, obviously. And Japan, they've got lots of brass instruments. It's very organized, and you kind of see people with trumpets and things going into the ballpark, and yeah, it's very musical and organized. And then Korea's like a K-pop concert. They've got all these like really loud pop songs for every player. The fans, I'd say, get more drunk in Korea. And it's pretty raucous, pretty wild by the 5th, 6th, 7th inning in the KBO, whereas Japan, they're a little bit more conservative still. So both loud, both atmospheres.
Fans are carrying in trumpets in Japan.
Yeah, like there's a lot of brass instruments. Usually in the outfield, they kind of set up, and in Korea they set up the music on the first or third base sides. There's a cheerleader kind of deck where you have a cheermaster who's usually a bloke, and he'll get the crowd hyped like all throughout the game. And you've got 4 cheerleaders for the home team usually, and then 2 for the away team. So away cheerleaders travel as well, and it's really regimented so the fans know what side to sit on, and they'll buy their tickets accordingly. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, the KBO.
That's really funny to me because when I was in high school, we had a high school playoff series with a team that they were like very known for having the left field loudmouth thing going on, where they would back up this is a very Texas thing. They would back their trucks up to the left field fence and then just like heckle, and they were known for like researching all of the players, so they would scream like girlfriends' names or sisters' names at people. So we took that as like a very personal challenge to be better hecklers. And one of the things we brought in, well, we had like a wash bucket with like a wooden spoon, but we brought in a trumpet, but no one knew how to play the trumpet. So we were just like trying to get noise out of it, literally any noisemaker we could have thought of. And the referee or the umpire put a very quick stop to that. The trumpet went away very quickly. We were not allowed to have that.
Did it work? Did it put off the other team?
Yes. So because they were heckling from left field, I guess the umpires like didn't realize that they were like yelling at our left fielder, like his mom's name and his girlfriend's name. And we were yelling from right behind home plate. So the taunts of yelling their like significant others' names or whatever, very personal details, got nixed as well, which just turned into a "we can't taunt you" chant. That was still very effective. So yeah, the boys won that series. It was good. We had a very, very good high school baseball team, which was a lot of fun. But
is that like when you're age 14 to 18? Or is it like 14 to 18 or something?
Yeah, it's 14 to 18 for us. So we had 2 like star pitchers and they both played D1 baseball that year. And then a lot of other guys like went on to continue baseball careers. It was just like a really, really good team that had all come up playing together since they were very young. High school sports in these states, I feel like, are so fun. And I feel like maybe it's not the same for you guys. Do y'all have a similar culture like in England around?
Absolutely not. No, I don't think anyone cares whether, we're playing football or whatever against another school. But it sounds really exciting in the USA, and it's something that I've never been to. I don't recall ever going to a high school baseball game or a high school any game. So yeah, that's on the bucket list, I guess, if it sounds as fun as you've just made it sound.
Yeah, I think it depends on like where you are, but I grew up in the Houston area, and Houston obviously produces a lot of baseball players, and it's just like a super competitive area. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I know we were talking right before this about like college football. My high school football games felt similar. Like that was the thing you did on Friday nights. And I didn't grow up in a small town that like revolved around football. I grew up in a pretty large suburb of Houston, but like your weekends were about the football games. Like that was the thing to do. That was the social event of the weekend, was like you were seen at the football game.
Oh boy, no, that sounds very different to back home. Yeah. No.
Just a little bit of a difference, but so for that, I think I would really enjoy like the Japanese and KBO games. So at what point did you decide that you were going to stop teaching, take your life savings and come over to the States and do the MLB? And when did that kind of evolve into like including MILB games?
It kind of by mistake. You know, like a lot of baseball fans, I'd always had this romantic notion of getting in a car and trying to go to as many ballparks as I can in a season, particularly the MLB, you know, the 30 MLB stadiums, ballparks. But it's just one of those things. I was meant to be moving to Kansas City because I had a girlfriend there. And yeah, I'd handed in my notice in Seoul in Korea, and was getting all ready to move over there. And then she dumped me by text. So
oh my God, that's so mean.
It's pretty brutal. I don't talk about this very much, but yeah, this is the real reason why it all happened. So everything that I'd saved up, which I thought was going to be going on, I don't know, various adult things that you pay for when you're in a relationship, whatever, like a mortgage or a car, that kind of stuff. I just thought, oh boy, like I don't have a job. This girl's just broken up with me by text. That's pretty rough. Like, how can I turn this into a good thing? So
Right.
I did. I took out all the money and just spent it on baseball. And I had the time of probably my life, I imagine. So yeah, I turned that into a positive, and yeah, it's definitely something I don't regret doing.
Was it a little bittersweet when you crossed Kaufman off the list?
Do you know what? It was really odd. When I was there, I saw her. She was in the same section as me with like a group of people. And I had a
Like unplanned?
Yeah, completely. And she's not a baseball fan. So I was just like, what is going on? So I kind of knew I was over it because I recognized her, and I just kind of pulled my hat down a bit lower and just kept going up to the back. I always sit up at the back in the nosebleeds. So she didn't see me, I don't think. And it didn't really bother me. So I kind of knew I was over it. And I was just, yeah, looking forward to watching the Royals lose to the Yankees.
So who is your US team? Like, who's your MLB team?
They are the Royals, yeah, the Kansas City Royals, just because I dated this girl for quite a bit of time from the area, and I flew across from Seoul many times and got to know the place for the first time, really the first place that I really spent prolonged consecutive times in. I spent one summer in Dallas, but I kept flying back to Kansas City. So love the barbecue. Pace of life in the Midwest is a bit different to what I was used to, but I really like that as well. So yeah, the Royals are my team. They play in blue. My football team back home play in blue. It's nothing to do with the monarchy. Like, people are listening, like, he's British, or the Royals. No. It's just because I dated this girl.
I didn't even think of that, the Royals connection, but that's why. So you know all about Patrick Mahomes, then that makes sense.
I know, yeah, just a bit about him. Like, as we were saying earlier, I know where he went to college, Texas Tech, and
At
I know,
Texas Tech.
yeah, I know his dad used to play baseball.
Yeah, and now he's a minority owner of the Royals, which was just like, that's when you know you've made money. That's what I'm like, that's the pinnacle. Like, that's when you know you've made it. When you're an athlete and you're like, you know what, I'm still playing and I'm just gonna buy an interest in this team.
Yeah, $500 million or whatever he's got paid. You know, good luck to him. He seems like a decent lad, like a nice bloke. So yeah, yeah, good for him.
So, what was your favorite stadium that you went to while you were over here?
Oh boy, like MLB Ballpark, it's really unpopular, Kate, but I like the Coliseum. I like the fact it was a bit gritty and a bit run down.
Okay.
And I like the fact it was kind of in Oakland, which is a city that's similar to where I grew up in Portsmouth. It's kind of a bit unfavored. It's near another city which gets more of the limelight. You know, speaking about San Francisco and Southampton, where I'm from on the south coast of England, seen as a bit fancier than where I'm from in Portsmouth. So yeah, I really liked it. The fans there have got drums and stuff as well, so it's noisy. It was like being in Korea or being in Japan. It was. I know a lot of people get annoyed by the drums in the outfield there, but yeah, shout out to the Athletics fans. I really enjoyed my time there.
That is wild. That's probably not even close to the stadium I would have picked.
Well,
especially with Oracle being right there now.
Yeah. I mean, that's number 2 for me. Hang on. I'm getting confused. Is it Oracle San Francisco, right?
Yeah, it's changed.
Was it like
from
18
AT&T.
when I was there, or maybe the year before it kind of changed? So I get confused. So Oracle, okay, you prefer San Francisco.
Oh yeah, over Oakland for sure. But my favorite stadiums are so I lived in Seattle, so I spent a lot of time at Safeco. It will always be Safeco to me, but T-Mobile Park. They have this horrible I don't know if you've noticed this or if was it Safeco when you went there?
I think it just changed 2019 to T-Mobile, but in my head, it's still safe, just like AT&T with Oracle.
So over the bullpens are in left field at Safeco, right? And over that section, there's kind of this big sign, and it used to say Safeco Park, true to the blue. And Safeco's logo is blue and gray and white. And it fit in perfectly, right? And it was just this really cool sign that I always loved looking out. There's not a bad seat in that stadium. There's not a bad view in that. It's just, to me, it's like the best experience of a ballpark. But now they have this horrible, gaudy pink T-Mobile sign over the same true to the blue. And it just kills me. So every time I'm there, I'm like, can we just scrub that out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always weird when the ballparks change a little bit like that. And so you grew up in Seattle?
I grew up in Houston. So
Oh
I
yeah.
grew up with the Astrodome, and then I had Minute Maid Park. I actually went, so the first game in Minute Maid Park was an exhibition game against the Yankees, and we were lucky enough to go. But it was Enron Field back then, before the big Enron scandal.
Oh, boy.
That was a good name change. But yeah, I have not crossed off as many ballparks as you have, but I feel like most of my favorites are on the West Coast. I really like Seattle, I like San Francisco, and then I love San Diego.
Oh yeah, yeah. San Diego's great as well. Yeah, I really like that. Like, I had some of the most expensive beers of the whole trip in like West Coast, like San Francisco. I think I had like a $23 beer, and I was so embarrassed that like I kind of like wanted to hand it back, but they'd already like cracked it open. It was a can. It was like a craft beer or something. So
Oh man.
oh no, so I had to pay. But yeah, it's expensive on the West Coast, but super nice. Um, yeah, Dodger Stadium was good as well. I kind of like it's kind of, the colors of the seats, kind of like the sea, and then going up into the sky, like the sun and stuff is cool.
Dodger Stadium is a good one. I've never been to Anaheim, but I'm curious to see how they compare.
It's not too favorably on the Anaheim one. It's I think it was built like, I think it's like 1960 or something around about then it was built, but it's not aged well. So but it's got a cool outfield bit with like the rocks and stuff out where by Mike Trout plays. So yeah, it does have some good features and a great brewery just like in the car park.
So at what point did you decide that you were going to start adding in all the minor league stadiums?
Just like to help me get across the country, because your country's so huge that if I
Yeah.
wanted to get from, I don't know, like the Braves, if I was heading west from Atlanta, I think the next one is, I don't know, Kansas City or like Texas Rangers or something. That's a huge gap. So
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it might actually be Houston.
it's like crazy the amount of space there is around the Braves to the next MLB one. But I've always been interested in minor league ballparks anyway, because I read lots of books when I began learning about baseball, and there was one about life in the minor leagues, and I read about the pay and the bus trips and the small towns, and it all sounded really interesting, to be honest. So it was something that I'd always planned to do before I set off on the trip, was to visit as many minor league ballparks in between these MLB ballparks as I could. So yeah, really happy to tick off quite a lot of those as well. But they've all changed now, like because of the they cut 40 teams or 42 teams, and now they've kind of realigned the divisions and things, and the whatever they're called, so the leagues. So it's yeah, I think it's time that I get come back and do a full minor league 120 ballparks or something.
Yeah, it might be a little easier now. I do feel like they streamlined a lot of I mean, it's unfortunate, and you hate seeing teams lose their like affiliation and therefore usually their livelihood. But my hometown, so I'm from Sugar Land, which is right outside of Houston, and we had a AAA equivalent independent team in the Atlantic League which
Skeeters.
made no sense. Yes.
Yeah,
So
I've been
the
there quite-
Skeeters Ballpark is like a stone's throw from my parents' house. It's so close.
Nice.
And they are now the AAA affiliate of the Houston Astros, which is pretty cool to
Pretty
have
cool.
seen that come up.
As an outsider, Kate, it was always surprising to see how many teams there were under, you know, each franchise umbrella. Like you've got like 6-7 teams going down. I was always like, wow, like how is that sustainable? So I get the cut for efficiency, and you know, it looks like some of these leagues have now kind of reformed as college. Some are, you know, wood bat leagues or whatever, or you've got this MLB draft league now as well, which I think has taken over the old Appalachian League. So yeah, most of these communities have still got baseball, which is the most important thing. But yeah, always sad to see some teams go.
That's interesting to know that you looked at it and thought it was unsustainable, where for us who have had that for it's all we know, when they started announcing that they were going to cut teams, it was like, where are you going to put guys? What's happening? You know, guys are going to, you were already losing guys due to like the fact that they don't pay them. It's not a sustainable lifestyle. And so if there's not support coming from somewhere else, or a very obvious path to at least AAA where you can make a livable salary, usually the guys just bail. But yeah, it's been interesting over here to like see who's been cut and who hasn't. And I feel like guys who would normally get opportunities definitely aren't. What was the most interesting theme night you saw in a minor league ballpark? Did you
Oh,
catch any interesting ones?
do you know what? Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I'm always amazed by how big Star Wars is in the States. Like there's always seems to be like a Star Wars night. I guess it was May the 4th, like May the 4th be with you, whatever. But yeah, I was at a Star Wars night in St. Louis, and it's just odd, you know, seeing people dressed up as stormtroopers at a baseball game. Yeah, you guys love Star Wars, so yeah, that's kind of a recurring one that I think I saw more than once, like on different nights, different dates.
I heard you say, or you told me earlier that you were listening to the Sim episode, and I've known Erickson for 5 years now. And when he said that Salem hosted a strikeout meth night, I really wish that we had a video of my face when because he's never brought that up. And
No,
like, and my best friend Matt, who works in baseball and worked at Driveline too, and I were both like looking at him when we were done recording. We were like, how has that never come up? Because that's the most insane theme night I've ever heard of.
that is, yeah, that's hopefully something that we can all get behind as well, though. You know, it does unite the fans, I hope, striking out meth.
In Salem, Oregon, it might not unite everyone. It's a very interesting little town.
To any of your hardcore meth addicts that listen to the show, no offense, man.
No offense. No offense. You brought up barbecue in Kansas City. I'm from Texas, so I would argue that the barbecue is much better down here. Definitely a different style, a different flavor. Which one would you pick? And also, what was the best thing you ate in a ballpark while you were here?
Oh boy. Okay, so Kansas City or Texas barbecue. This is going to be unpopular, but I do prefer Texas. The brisket in Texas is better. And I think in Texas, they're kind of more proud about not having sauces with it. So, you know, they kind of, if they really put the time and effort into it, they don't really want you to have the sauce because it hides the work and the craft that's gone into smoking the meat. So I'm not a sauce guy. So for that reason, I'd probably choose Texas. But I know Joe's in KC is my favorite barbecue restaurant. So I will go Kansas City for my favorite barbecue place I've been to, Joe's in KC.
Very fair. And your favorite ballpark food that you've had?
Oh, Kate, I've got the most unsophisticated palate. So I'm just a plain hot dog guy and a Miller Lite and some peanuts. I know you're peanut allergic, so apologies.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I didn't have any fancy stuff really. When I was in the Bronx, a Yankee fan bought me one of those huge soda things that have the chicken tenders on top of the soda with
Yeah.
and a straw goes up the middle. And that was kind of, I guess, a unique, I've never had that, like where you're kind of drinking a Coke while sniffing chicken tenders about a centimeter away from your nostril. So yeah, that was quite a memorable experience, I guess, but nothing too fancy. I'm not too wild when it comes to food and stuff.
You didn't do like garlic fries in Seattle or tri-tip nachos in San Diego?
Okay, no, you're right. I did do grasshoppers in Seattle. ESPN launched a brand new baseball program in the United Kingdom called Caps Off in 2019 when I was over there. And they asked me to pick up some grasshoppers from Seattle. And then I was flying to the East Coast the day after. And they invited me into their studio. So I stayed where, I think it's Bristol, Connecticut, where ESPN studios are. With these grasshoppers, I was really worried I was going to get stopped by customs for like, this kind of weird substance I was carrying in my rucksack and having to explain what it was. So yeah, I tried grasshoppers on live TV. Well, at least it was recorded TV that went out live in the UK. So yeah, grasshoppers, they're all right. They're fine. It's just, it doesn't have too much flavor. It's quite a nice texture. Garlic fries, San Francisco, the whole ballpark stank of garlic fries in San Francisco. Like, I don't know how anyone goes home and, whatever, with their loved one, because the breath must be horrendous after a night at the ballpark at San Francisco.
It's so funny that I equate garlic fries with Seattle just because I was there, but same thing. Like anywhere on the concourse, you just smell garlic fries. And I think I've had them maybe once when I was there. I'm kind of the same way. I'm mainly a hot dog girl, but like San Diego has a fantastic kale salad that I would eat, which I know sounds criminal, but it's so good.
Cool, ever
And
seeing salad the whole time I was in America, like anywhere. Kale salad.
Yes. So San Diego, actually, to me, San Diego has the best food in the entire MLB, but they have little eateries that like you can literally do tri-tip nachos. You can do they do a bunch of different tacos. Tri-tip is similar to brisket. It's just a different cut.
Oh, okay.
It's like very popular in Southern California. Like it's their version of brisket.
Okay.
But they do, they just have these like really cool. I feel like San Diego, because it's such a cool city and it's hard to like pull people in to the actual ballpark. They work like a lot harder on making the experience like more well-rounded. So like it's not just like diehard baseball fans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really cool, the San Diego one, like right in that Gaslamp district downtown, all the bars, so you can walk there and stuff. I always like ballparks we can walk to them. So you don't have to worry about driving and drinking and Ubers that are going to cost you like 5 times surges to get to your wherever you're going. So yeah, I like San Diego for that reason, the fact it is walkable.
Were there any ballparks that you were significantly underwhelmed by?
Underwhelmed. Off the top of my head, no. And I know that's not very exciting, but you kind of do stadiums on a different level to us in the UK, I guess because your population's bigger, but our kind of average kind of sports stadiums about 40,000 for like Premier League football. Whereas you've got, some of these your football stadiums are like 90, 100,000 for the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys, I think it is like 100,000 or something crazy. So yeah, they're just on a different scale, your kind of ballparks to anything we're really used to. And the fact you can walk around and drink a beer in your seat and watch the game without, getting thrown out like you would in the UK. If you had a beer in your seat, you get asked to leave. So yeah, no, nothing really. The one I did rank all of them, Kate. I've never released this because like rankings are just, it's not worth how many
the pushback.
Yeah, like I don't need that in my life. I've got a nice easy life. I don't need that hate. So the one that was down the bottom, I think, was the Arizona one, Chase Field.
Yeah,
just really dark in there. And I just couldn't see. I meant to wear glasses for I haven't got them on now, but I just found it too dark to really kind of tell what was going on. So yeah, Chase Field, but I still enjoyed it.
Earlier when you said that Anaheim had not aged well, that to me is a stadium that did not age well. Like, I think Chase was built in the 90s, like maybe the late 90s, if not very early 2000s, and fans have been pushing for it to be redone already, which is just mind-blowing to me. So, and I
Yeah.
will tell you, this is going to be disappointing, but I don't like the new Texas Rangers stadium either.
Oh, have you been to the new one?
Yeah, so my sister, this is kind of a wild story, but my sister and I helped move a friend in Oregon. Her best friend from college was moving to Oregon, so we went out and like helped her set up her house. And it was October, and we got a freak ice storm here, like inches of ice frozen on trees. That is not normal for
Texas.
Lubbock, Texas.
Hey.
Yeah, just I mean, we've had the weirdest winter year. We've gotten inches and inches of snow. We'll usually get some snow, but definitely not in October. So we're like flying from Oregon. So we leave Portland, we land in Vegas, and we get a notification that our flight's canceled. I'm like, okay, there are worse places to get stuck. Actually, the most I've ever enjoyed Las Vegas was during the pandemic because there were not that many people around. People were like keeping their distance, not just running over you in the casinos. So we stayed on the strip, got a great rate, and we were like, okay, we're going to fly home, you know, they're like, we'll route you through Dallas and then on to Lubbock. Great. We are walking down the strip the next day, and our flight's at like 2, and we get a notification that our flight from Dallas to Lubbock is canceled, which we were expecting. Like, Lubbock's still frozen.
Hmm.
And I look at my sister and I was like, it's game 6 of the World Series tonight. Are we going? And she was like, we're going. So, and I love I don't say that I have like a favorite team because I just know too many people around the league. It's hard to like cheer for one person. But at the beginning of every year, I'll pick a team that I think is going to win. And last year, my team was like Tampa Bay. I was all in on Tampa Bay. So the fact that they were in it and we got to go to game 6, they like had pod seating, and the 2 people in the pod next to us were awesome. It was a great experience. But to me, that stadium took all my least favorite parts of Minute Maid Park and like married it with all my least favorite parts of Yankee Stadium. So like the seating is like very segmented and it feels like very exclusive, and like Minute Maid Park has a roof and the roof looks very similar to me, but it's dark, and the bullpens like are not accessible unless you're in the front row behind. You can't even see who's up in the bullpen unless you're like literally on top of the bullpen. And for me, the bullpens are like arguably the best part of a fan experience in any stadium. I think it's part of the reason I love Seattle so much. So yeah, they needed a roof. That field is miserable in July, but I just wish they'd put a roof on the old stadium. I like it better.
Yeah, I like the old one too. I was really surprised that they were building a brand new one like 25 years or something after the original Globe Life went up. But yeah, I need to get there. That's one I haven't been to, Kate. So you've not sold it to me, but I'll make sure I get there anyway.
You've got to experience it. You've got to go to a Rangers game with air conditioning. It's life-changing. And I will say that they have the suites that are field level. I would like to
Oh, nice.
see what that's like. I think
Yeah.
that would be really interesting, but
Hey, Kate, where do you like to sit when you go to a ballpark? Like, if you're just going to one game and you could sit anywhere except for the expensive seats, like where would you choose to go?
I'm a wanderer during games, but I would say I like to be in the lower level, but I like to be in like the last couple rows in the lower level, close enough to home plate where I can see what the pitcher's doing. So like I don't really love being down the baselines. I don't need to be exactly behind home plate, but I guess I like to be between home plate and the dugout, but
Yeah.
like up towards the top of that section. And I'm even okay there are stadiums where like being in the upper decks really doesn't bother me, but truly the reason I don't like the upper decks is I'm terrified of heights. Like terrified of heights. And the stairs in those stadiums are not height friendly.
They're really like vertigo inducing, some of them, really steep.
Yeah, so Houston has really bad stairs like in the
Yeah.
upper decks.
It's crazy, yeah. Like when you walk
Yeah.
around the concourse in like the really, see, like you're really high up, but it kind of feels like you're in a cave or something. It's yeah, good views though from up there, just really high.
The guys complain about that, about the visitors bullpen is like similar because it's very closed in. I actually asked Gio about it because like most everyone that I've talked to hates it. It's like super duper loud and it's like a literal cave. And he was like, doesn't bother me. I thought that was mind blowing.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised you didn't say, I don't love Marlins Park.
You know
you
what?
like all the stadiums, I don't.
I almost interrupted you earlier when you were talking about food, because Marlins Park for me had the best ballpark food of anywhere I went to. Like San Diego's a
Interesting.
close second, but yeah, they've got like loads of South American food and kind of like Cuban food and stuff.
Right.
I guess like Caribbean food, like it's really interesting. It was something completely different, and yeah, I didn't really get why everyone hates on Marlins Park, because I think it looks kind of cool from the outside. It's all white, like it's kind of white weird spaceship thing, and then it's got great food. And I had like this beer that I didn't see anywhere else called Presidente. I think it's like a Dominican or Puerto Rican beer. I know A-Rod kind of is like a brand ambassador now for them as well. Like I saw
Interesting.
so, yeah, delicious beer. So if you've got an unsophisticated palate like me, really enjoyed that. So yeah, Marlins Park was fine. Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to let you slander Marlins Park.
It's not my favorite because I think that the way you have to get out, it feels like you're leaving the stadium to get to the concourse to get food. Like it's not a seamless experience.
No, that's
You know
true.
what I'm saying? So like when I'm getting food on a concourse, I still want to be aware of what's going on. But yeah, so that's my biggest like bone to pick with Marlins Park is that you gotta head out. Did you run into Marlins man while you were here ever?
I bumped into him not in 2019, but I was at the winter meetings in Las Vegas 2018. And I bumped into him. Like it's hard to miss him because he literally wears his Marlins stuff all the time. So I think he's wearing like his bright orange Marlins top, and I got a photo with him outside one of the winter meeting kind of conference rooms. So yeah, I have met him, and he asked me about London and where to stay for the MLB Europe game, which was in 2019. So he was asking for like where to stay. And I said, well, it depends how much money you've got. Like, you know, Kensington, Chelsea, really nice, but very expensive. He's like, oh, don't worry about money. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he's a personal injury lawyer. So he just like can work billable hours from wherever. Like I would say the two of you are probably like the pinnacle baseball fans, right? Like you did this crazy trip everywhere and like made it happen and lived out every baseball fan's dream. And then he just does whatever he wants whenever he wants.
Yeah, like he's probably not sleeping on strangers' sofas or in random car parks. Yeah, we both watch a lot of baseball, so that's, yeah, I guess we have that in common.
Have you made like lifelong friends from sleeping on strangers' sofas?
Yeah, no, I have. Yeah, there's people that I message almost every day from the trip in 2019. Depending on where I was, like I was messaging a guy called Todd today. He's been at the Dodgers homestand. He's a big Dodgers fan. He lives like 5 miles away from Dodger Stadium, so I stayed with him. And it's always interesting because he messaged me on Twitter and said, "Hey, I see you coming to LA. If you need a place to stay," and I always did, "you can crash here." But he hadn't told his wife, Leslie. So when I arrived, like Leslie was like, "Odd, like what is going on? Like, is this, you know, I look odd, like, you know, look at my face now, it's like unshaven, I've got this big moustache and stuff." So yeah, Leslie was really sweet in the end. Like, I think I won her over, and, you know, we had a good time in Los Angeles. So I'm going to go back when I get vaccinated, hopefully the end of this year. then I'll be able to go back to the States next summer, I'm hoping. So we've made plans to stay with Leslie and Todd again.
I love that. I think baseball is a really special community, and it's a small world. You don't realize how small it is until you're in it.
You really don't want to annoy anyone, Kate, like in the baseball industry, because it's like, everyone knows everybody, and it's weirdly small. You're right.
Or just like 1 degree of separation. I always say it's so funny when someone, like, I meet someone who's like plays baseball and they say, "Oh, I was with this organization, this organization." I'm like, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And it's always like, yeah, it's so small. And it's weird to say that to people who are outside it, because like we said, there were 7 teams at some points in these organizations. So you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of people, and you just all are interconnected. I know one of your big missions is to kind of educate people in England about baseball. How's that going? What are the plans for the future? Where do you see that going?
Yeah, it's not getting that well, actually. It's because I got into baseball when I left the UK. I'm seen as more of a stranger and oddball there than I am in the States, really. Like I guess most of my people that follow me on social media are American or Canadian. So yeah, they eye me with quite a lot of suspicion. They don't really get what I'm doing, but most of the stuff I put on social media is just, it's educational for me. Like I'm kind of learning it, and I'll write it up, and I'll try and write it in a way that it's kind of accessible for everybody. But you know, like the Korean ballparks I'm going to, I'm really bad at Instagram. Back in 2019, MLB London were like, "Joey, like you should have an Instagram account. Like people are going to want to follow it." But I was just like, it's bad enough on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like you kind of open Twitter sometimes, you're like, "Oh boy, like I don't even know this person. Why are they so angry at me?" So I didn't get involved with Instagram at all until really this season. I'm beginning to use Instagram more because you've got those 14-second stories. So I'm posting stuff from Korean ballparks. I kind of get it. Like MLB's back now in the USA. A lot of the interest that was with the KBO when it opened, like only the second pro league to open in 2020 after the league in Taiwan. ESPN covered it, lots of interest from the States. I get it now that it's kind of diminishing a bit because MLB's back. So I'm just trying to post these really short clips that aren't going to distract people too much or kind of trigger them. So yeah, I'm using Instagram for that at the moment. And hopefully some people in the UK are following and maybe interested in flying out to Korea and catching a game at the KBO. That's really all my intention is to make baseball look fun. And yeah, I try not to kind of rub it in people's faces that I'm going to all these ballparks, because I know I'm really lucky to be able to do that. And I always say to people, Kate, like when, you know, they're like, "Oh, I wish I could do what you're doing." I'm just a teacher of economics that has no car, no house, no girlfriend, no dog. Like people that are jealous of me, I always say it should be the other way around. You've got all this cool stuff. I don't have any of that stuff. So yeah, it's an odd one to explain, but people in the UK, yeah, they eye me with quite a lot of suspicion, I think.
I think that any real true baseball fan needs to experience the KBO at some point. So at Driveline, we were obsessed with the KBO, like unhealthily obsessed with the KBO, because it's fun. Like it's everything that the MLB should be doing in like marketing the players and just making the stadiums rowdy, and like the bat flips in the KBO are the most dramatic thing you've ever seen. And then over here we have guys charging each other for celebrating anything. So
yeah, I mean that's kind of fun as well to watch, like learning about the unwritten rules. That just blew my mind, like why these guys got so upset about stuff, like why they're so sensitive, particularly like with NBA, like they're dunking and they're like over people on the court. The NFL, they're doing all this like touchdown cam stuff. I don't know what the problem is in baseball. You hit a home run and you look mildly happy about it, or you watch it for like 2 seconds, or you run a little bit slowly, or you know, heaven forbid, you throw the bat. Everyone gets super upset, like all these tough guys. Like, why? I've never understood it. I think they need to get over it. I think the fans like seeing, you know, the bat flips, and they like seeing emotion and joy in any sport. So yeah, I think that's something the players need to sort out. I know, you know, Rob Manfred and MLB get a lot of stuff, but this is really a player thing. Like, stop being so up in your feelings, like, you know, grow some.
Yeah, we talked about that. I talked about this with Pitching Ninja. I don't know if you follow him. If you don't, he's great.
I
But we were
do.
talking, so we talked about when the MLB kind of reached out to him and they were like, hey, quit posting stuff. And I don't know if he's a lawyer, like he has a law degree. So then they were like, you're violating the copyright. He was like, wrong person to like fight with. Like, let's find a middle ground. And they did. I mean, I shouldn't say wrong person to fight with. He's not a person who's going to back down. And so he was like willing to find a middle ground, and they did. And he said, the MLB knows that they need to do this, but it's just so hard to get there. And I think what baseball needs to do is Rob Manfred needs to be the commissioner. He needs to be in charge of the game and the owners and the on the field product. And they need to hire a CEO or a marketing president to actually market the players, because it's ridiculous. We have players doing a better job of marketing other players than the actual MLB is doing. So
Yes, it's definitely something. I think MLB is improving since, I've only been watching since 2015. I think it has got better. The fact they allow people like Rob, who I always say is like one of the top accounts to follow on social media. If you're curious about baseball or new to baseball, he makes it really fun and accessible. I know Jimmy and Jake, with John Boy Media, are doing really good work as well with the breakdown videos. I've got mates back in England WhatsApping me saying, "Hey Joey, I saw this. What's going on here?" And the breakdowns are really accessible. I know you're from Houston, so maybe John Boy Media is probably not. He's not a very popular bloke in the Houston area, but
I have never really been an Astros fan. So like growing up, the reason I'm a baseball fan truly is because of Derek Jeter. I love that man more than life. Yeah, I always joke, I'm like, I don't know if Jeter was my first crush or if I just like really fell in love with the game of baseball, but I used to always want to wear the number 2. I never got to. I always wanted to play shortstop. I was always the tallest kid on the team, so I was on first base. I got to play shortstop like once in a blue moon, and I was good enough to play shortstop, but they were also just like, yeah, 8-year-olds are throwing to you and we need like the largest margin of error, so get on first base.
Yeah, you say you're 5'11", right?
Yeah,
real
Viking height over here. And I've always been like, that's why I never got to be number 2. So like I always wore a size small, but the jerseys got longer as the number got bigger. So like the number 2 jersey was like a crop top.
Oh
But the
boy.
number 5 jersey was long enough, so I was always number 5, and I hated the number 5. I never wanted to be number 5. I just always wanted to be 2. So yeah, I grew up a Yankees fan, and then obviously as I got into baseball and started knowing people around the league, and people get shuffled around constantly. I always joke that if you go through my closet, you would have no idea who I cheer for. I was in a San Francisco Giants shirt yesterday. I think I was in a Rangers shirt the day before. It's just whatever I pull out.
Kate, what's your favorite current MLB jersey? Like just from an aesthetic point of view.
Ooh. Do you have one? I'm gonna have to think on this for a second.
I was just like thinking, asking that out loud, but I know a lot of my mates back home, they do like the kind of look of the baseball jersey, and you see a lot of people with Yankees hats without knowing that it means the Yankees. They just think it means New York. So there is a kind of element in the UK where baseball has got into our culture without people necessarily recognizing it. And yeah, certainly the fashion and the jerseys, I think would be a helpful way of expanding interest or awareness of baseball in our country. But I'm more interested to know what you think is the best one.
I like, from a classic standpoint, I'm always going to go with the Yankees pinstripes.
Oof.
I will tell you, I think the worst jersey in the league is the Padres brown.
I saw you post this on your Twitter. Yeah, hot take alert. And it is a hot take. I think you're going to get a lot of pushback on that.
I do. So I am pretty good friends with the Padres beat writer for The Athletic. And I always tell him, I'm like, Dennis, I hate those brown jerseys. And he's like, San Diegans love them. Like I don't like the color brown. I think they're the ugliest thing. Honestly, Probably my favorite jerseys are, weirdly, hate the stadium, but I really like Miami's like Miami Vice vibe going on, where they went with the like bright blue and pink, and I just think it's like it's a fun pop. It's something different, and it's something that city I think needs, because again, it's a beach city. It's really hard to pull people into a stadium when they can sit on a beach and drink and watch the game on TV.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I like the Miami Goth jersey. Have you seen the black one?
Yes.
Like a proper, like, I actually bought that jersey without a name or number on the back. So I'm not a Marlins fan, but I am kind of into some heavy music. So I was like, this is a pretty goth jersey. I'm going to wear this around. No one else likes it, by the way, but yeah, it's one of my favorites.
I will say Nike, I don't know if you saw this, they released the Boston jersey. They're doing the For the City series.
The one.
I think those kind of will have a similar impact to what you're talking about, where I think they have like the chance to do something really neat. I'm curious to see what they do. Being from Houston, I really want to see what they do with the Houston jerseys. I would like them to look like graffiti. That's just like, Houston has a sign that says "Be Someone," like it's a graffiti over a bridge, over like a major highway in Houston. And to me, it's just like the most iconic, true Houston thing. People keep painting over it, and every time it pisses me off, and then someone comes back and redoes it. But so I think like something like that, but I don't know what direction they're gonna go with it. So I'm excited to see those as they keep coming out, because I liked Boston's, even though I don't think many people did.
Another hot take from Kate there, listeners. Yeah.
I know the jersey question is like, it brings a lot of divide. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to think what jerseys I own. I don't buy jerseys, and I've never admitted this publicly. So this is a fun factoid. But if I ever buy a jersey and I put a player on the back of it, that player will get traded before the trade deadline. Or if I buy it after the trade deadline, they will get traded in the off season. And I think I'm like 4 for 4 on it. So
Oh boy, no, that's pretty unlucky.
yeah, the last jersey I bought when Houston was in the World Series run, I wanted Houston to win because I was living in Houston and it was fun to go to all the games. And I really, really liked Joe Musgrove. And at the time, he was coming out of the bullpen. And my best friend plays football and wears the number 59, and he wore 59. So it's like, perfect. Like, that's the jersey to buy. So I got it for the playoff run, off season, traded. I was like, we're never buying another jersey again.
Oh boy.
Except for retired players.
Retired players, yeah, that should be safe. Well, yeah, should be safe with that one. Unless they do something horrific, and then you can't wear it. So it's not, listeners, it's not completely fail safe. You can still go wrong with a Legends jersey. But yeah, safer.
That is true. The social media age has made it exposed a lot of skeletons that I think we wouldn't have known about a lot of players. We're going through that in Houston right now with our football team. So I actually was wearing a Texans shirt before I got on here, and I was like, I should probably take that off if we're gonna have video. Real quick though, did you go to any college football games when you were here? Because you did know my college mascot as soon as I mentioned it.
I went to the College World Series, so Texas Tech were there at the College World Series. So I know they made me do this kind of guns up thing.
Yeah.
Which like I did because they were filming it. And then afterwards I was like, oh boy, like someone on Twitter is going to kick off that I'm promoting gun violence or something like guns up. And like, before you know it, someone in the UK is mouthing off, why are you promoting guns? I was like, that's just what they do. So I learned a little bit about it. I went to 2 college football games after the MLB season. One in Houston, actually. Yeah, I went to Rice.
Okay, yeah.
Rice played. And then I went to Tulane. Tulane on my college football team. So yeah, they were playing against Tulsa on their homecoming, I've never gone to a homecoming in the UK, so that was my first homecoming and like my first Saturday college game day experience. The one in Houston was on a Thursday or something, so it was a bit different. But yeah, I've been to 2. Really fun, super fun.
Rice is an eclectic college football environment because their band is an orchestra. So like they don't have a traditional marching band. Their marching band is a bunch of orchestra, and they wear like sweater vests. It's a very,
That sounds
very
really.
eclectic, very Rice thing to do.
And you know what, Key? I've just realised I didn't go to Rice for my first game. It was the University of Houston. I went to University of Houston. I've never been to Rice, so yeah, I just know that is in Houston. So I got confused. Sorry.
That is okay. So you saw the new stadium. You were there right after they opened the new stadium.
It seemed new. It was massive. I had some gumbo there. It was good fun. I can tell you that much, but I couldn't tell you much more about it. I don't really know the rules, so it's just it's easier to watch on TV, I think, sometimes with the NFL stuff, because you can see the yards. You know, you can actually see the lines. Whereas otherwise, like with my eyesight in particular, as I said, I have to wear glasses. I have no idea where 10 yards is. So
I think it's also really difficult if it's not something. I feel the same way about hockey. Like if you don't grow up watching it constantly and then you try and watch it, well, football in person, but hockey on TV, it's like really hard to track the puck. People always say that. They're like, how do you know where the puck is? And I don't know. I've just been watching it my whole life. So I just
you
can
kind of know
follow it. All right. I have a couple rapid fire quick questions for you to finish. Who is your favorite MLB player?
Zach Greinke.
Okay.
The Astros, yeah. He was on the Dodgers when I first got into baseball in 2015, and Hyunjin Ryu was on the Dodgers then. So all of the Dodgers games were on Korean TV, like every morning.
Okay.
The time difference, like West Coast and Korea time, is on like 10 in the morning. So that's how I learned the rules of baseball, was through watching Dodgers games with the English broadcast. And Greinke was on that 2015 Dodgers team, and I just loved him.
He's a fun character. And who's your favorite Korean baseball player?
He's just retired, but it was the KBO all-time hit leader. He's called Park Hyung-tak, and he's got, the reason I have this facial hair, for the listeners, I've got a moustache and then what I believe is called a soul patch. He has this facial hair, so I grew my facial hair to look like him. So he's my all-time favorite KBO player. But currently, I don't really, because I've just moved back, I don't have a current favorite KBO player. I get on well with Dan Straley of the Lotte Giants. He's on their pitching staff, so I speak to Dan fairly regularly. But I'm not a Giants fan, so I wouldn't say, no offense to Dan, he's my favorite. We've just signed. I'm an LG Twins fan. For the listeners, I've got an LG Twins hat on at the moment, and we've just signed a bloke called Andrew Suarez, and he's pitched 2 games, given up no hits. He's got the most strikeouts through the first full week of the season. So I'd say he's probably my favorite player at the moment, Andrew Suarez.
Okay, and what was your favorite MLB experience?
Favorite MLB experience is a bit of a weird one. I randomly got to know a lady on Twitter called Gina when I posted something saying that I'm going to give up my job and try and get to 160 baseball games in 2019. Lance McCullers Jr. retweeted it, and suddenly a load of Houston people began following me, and one of them was Gina. And Gina messaged me, this is back in February 2019, and said, "Hey Joey, I saw your video, Lance retweeted it. When you're in Houston, I'd like to host you with my husband." And I don't really know what host meant, whether it means I can stay in their house or they'll get me a ticket to the game or something. But fair enough. In May, 3 or 4 months later, the week before I arrived, I got another message saying, "Hey, just want to make sure you're still coming." And she said, "By the way, did I tell you that my husband is Jeff Lunau? He's the general manager of the Houston." So I was like, "No, you didn't tell me that." But then I looked, the name's Gina Lunau on Twitter. So I was like, well, this checks out. So I actually watched a lot of Astros games sat in the GM's box next to Jeff Lunau. And of course, after that season, a lot of news came out about the Astros that have completely changed how fans perceive that team now. Now in 2021. But at the time, I just sat next to Jeff and Gina and learned a lot about the organization, spent some time in the front office, saw Justin Verlander before a start with his headphones in this like dark room surrounded by computer screens, just like looking at data. And I got told by Jeff, don't look at him or speak to him, because before a start, I didn't realize that some pitches, like they're so locked in, they don't want anyone to disturb them by even looking at them. So yeah, I'd say that was probably my best experience, just because it was the least expected and it was the most surprising, and really, really lovely people, Jeff and Gina, and I'll defend Jeff to the hilt. So everything that's happened since then, I think, yeah, I think he's been treated somewhat harshly, but that's an unpopular take.
I would like to say that I think that's a very Houston experience. I think I know I'm biased because I'm from Houston, but I will die on the hill that Houston has some of the best hospitality in the United States. I just think that we're a mostly friendly city.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I spent lots of time in Houston, and we'll certainly be going back. And I try not to post anything on Twitter that's overly negative about the Astros. I still, try and celebrate every Greinke start and stuff and get people positive about the organization, because I think it's so unfair on the fans that they're going to be labeled and harangued, I guess, by, social media for stuff that they didn't have any control over. So particularly like when one of the guys who did have a lot of control over it is on the Red Sox now as their manager, and all the Red Sox fans are okay with that. So I think, it's fanaticism. I'll try and support Houston as much as I can still.
Boston fans are a different breed in general. And
Boston, really, my experience, those two, very different compared to other fan bases that I experienced.
I will say I've never gone to Philly. I want to go for a football game, and I've been told I am not allowed to. So I've been told that I am very mouthy in the stands and that it will not end well. So.
Oh boy, no, Kate, yeah, you don't want to do that. In those places, like it's like being at a UK football game. It's very much that kind of English football atmosphere where it's very tribal, it's very aggressive, it's very angry.
Yeah.
And it's very drunken. I saw more people getting asked to leave at Boston and Philly than I did anywhere else in the States. So yeah, it's just it reminded me of being at home really at a football game, to be honest, but with alcohol.
That's mind-blowing that you guys can't take alcohol to your seats at football games. And
it's because we'll fight each other. Like, we've got a horrendous history of hooliganism, and we can't be trusted around beer or other people. So it's our own fault. It's if we hadn't, decades of hooliganism.
I love that. And then what is your favorite KBO experience?
Favorite KBO experience is going to my local ballpark. It's really easy to get to from work. It's 15 minutes on the subway, and I always sit in the same section, 418. It doesn't have a roof, so you kind of gamble sometimes with the weather here in Korea, but you can buy a liter of beer for like $4, and it comes in like a plastic bottle. You can just carry it with you. It's kind of like one of those 40 ounces, like you guys say in the music songs I've heard, like, good show. I've got like a song called 40 Ounce or something. It's like, that kind of size. And you just sit there, sun on your back, $4 for a liter of beer. You've got the cheerleaders, you've got all the noise and stuff going on. That for me, just the run of the mill everyday game at Jamsil Stadium to watch my LG Twins is my favorite baseball experience in the world.
Are the KBO games more affordable than MLB games? Like overall?
Overall, definitely. I sit outfield 7,001, which is about $5.50. But I will say this, Kate, I was surprised when I was in the States. You could go on apps and things. I won't name them because there are various different ones, but I got a ticket for the Mets for $2 on one of these apps. Like, you pay like an online booking fee that makes it like about $4 or $5 in total, but it is affordable if you're willing to kind of, go to a Tuesday double header or whatever, and that kind of thing. If you're able to do that, I know it gets a lot of stick for being expensive going to a baseball game, and certainly beers are, and food can be. But if you pick your ends, you can go, Dollar Dog Night. You can go, Chase Field. I was slacking it off earlier for being dark. but they've got $4 Miller Lite cans that you can find. You just got to kind of do your research a bit, and it can be quite an affordable experience. Although often, of course, at a weekend game it's super expensive.
Yeah, I remember, it's funny now because like the Astros used to be so bad that you could walk up to the ticket booth, buy a $10 ticket in the nosebleeds, and then walk in and sit anywhere in the stadium you wanted to because there were not people there.
Oh boy, yeah. Like I don't have the confidence to do that. Like I'm very much by the book, but I do kind of admire those people that can just swagger in and kind of blag their way like seats behind home plate on a $10 ticket or something. Like, fair enough.
Yeah, there were like not people checking tickets in the sections, and I think the Astros at that point were just like, please put as many people as low as possible so it looks like there are people in the stands. It was bad, but yeah, I agree. Especially if you're willing to wait till last minute, you can usually find like pretty cheap tickets. But
how affordable it was, like maybe just for me, random weekday nights, whatever. But that was something surprising and positive about the trip. It was more affordable than I thought it could be.
I love that. And so you're planning on coming back next year?
Yeah, I was meant to be over in the States 2020. I was going to go to all the minor league teams that were on the proposed cut list from MLB. I was going to visit them in their final season affiliated, and I was going to revisit them the next year, and I was going to write a book about it, like to see what happened to these communities and the people I met from one year to the next with the departure of affiliated baseball from those small towns and communities. So that was something I couldn't do. But it's kind of got me thinking about things I can do to return. And certainly I'd like to write a book about minor league baseball at some point. So hopefully I'll be able to do that maybe in 2023 once my contract here ends in June 2022.
That's awesome. Well, we're looking forward to having you back over here. We'll host you for a game or two somewhere, wherever we are.
Appreciate that, Kate. Well, if you're still in Lubbock, we can meet up in Amarillo. I really like the Sod Poodles. They've got a lovely ballpark up there.
Yeah, I'm halfway between Amarillo and Midland. So you got the Rockhounds to the south and the Sod Poodles to the north. And I think Lubbock was trying to get a team for a while, but I think Texas Tech put the kibosh on that.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. I'll look forward to it.
The Coliseum? Really? That's your favorite ballpark?
Dude, that was I mean, I get it. Like it's like one of those like kind of like nostalgic.
Right. But I mean,
But
come
it's
on.
like, I know it's so wild to me that like someone not from the Bay Area said that. Like when he said the Coliseum, I was like, Oracle's like right there.
Because those are the two that I go to the most, just because they're closest to me.
Right.
And AT&T, Oracle, it's AT&T. It's
Yeah.
so like arguably top 3 to 5 ballparks in MLB.
Oh yeah.
I would argue the best, but I'm also biased. But especially when you're sitting like on the right field line and you can like see the game and also look out and see the bay, and then like if it's at night and the sun goes down and you can see the Bay Bridge and everything, and you're just like, wow, this is such a great atmosphere. And they got, as a kid, they had the Coke bottle slide, and they got wiffle ball out in the outfield, and then you go across the Coliseum and you're like, what do you got?
Yeah.
Nothing. But
yeah, I think it's
man.
like the same way. So I really love like the Rogers Center a lot. But I think for me, the reason I love it is because it reminds me of being inside the Astrodome, which is what I grew up in until obviously they built Minute Maid Park. And but yeah, when he said the Coliseum, I was like,
Yeah.
did you grow up in Oakland? And I just don't know, like the Coliseum.
Yeah. I
Every
understand his reasoning where he was like, no, rise of home and all this stuff. But I was just like, man, there's so many more aesthetically pleasing ballparks. But hey, to each their own, I guess.
That's how you know he's got to be like a true baseball fan. Like no passive baseball fan is like, you know where I want to go? The Coliseum.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago they had a free game just because like no one was going.
Yeah. He did ask me, and it caught me very off guard, what my favorite jersey in the MLB was. What is yours?
Oh, I would say, I mean, just like all time, I really like the throwback Arizona Diamondbacks jerseys. Currently, I also kind of like the Rockies when they have the sleeveless with like the black undersleeve and they have like the
Okay,
white
the kind of
pinstripes.
like throwback looking
Yeah.
jersey.
So
Yeah.
those are kind of similar, but then also one that just kind of hits on for me is the Giants orange jerseys, just because for when they were really good and they were winning World Series, they would only wear those on Fridays. And I was in high school at the time, so Fridays was the first day you didn't have homework and you can actually like we usually get pizza with my parents and watch the Giants game. And so that's just like a nostalgic good memory for me. And orange is my favorite color. So I like those, but
Orange is my favorite color too. That's
really
wild. Yeah, well,
surprised
I
you
mean
know that.
Oklahoma
But
State,
yeah,
and
that's
I
fair.
own a
That's
lot of
fair.
orange.
But
But yeah, I was when he asked me that, I was like, my brain like skipped, and I was like, all I can think about is like the jerseys that I hate.
I
Um,
usually think of like and I know you're not a basketball fan, but NBA jerseys because they used to have like the really cool throwback Toronto Raptors jerseys with the actual Raptor on them.
mhm.
Like the Denver Nuggets had these like they had like the skyline with like this like digi thing on it that was really cool. The Rockets had like an actual rocket. Like,
Those are my favorite. So like the blue jerseys with the
mm-hmm,
white wide pinstripes on them, like they're not tightly pinstriped. They're like the couple pinstripes on the
mm-hmm,
jersey with the rocket logo on
those are
it.
fresh.
I mean, those were same thing. Those are the jerseys of my childhood.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like really weird because I'm either a big fan of like jerseys that are super old and have like withstood the test of time and you don't change them, right? Like the Yankees.
Mm-hmm,
Or like I said, I went to Oklahoma State and Boone Pickens was really close with Phil Knight. And so Oklahoma State gets almost as many uniform combinations as Oregon. And
mm-hmm.
like when our baseball team was here, I noticed that the piping down their pants was neon orange. And I was like neon
Wow.
orange. It really stood out on like gray pants. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's tight. Like I like that.
That's sick. Yeah.
So I either like, yeah, it's got to be like really weird, kind of like neon, very like trendy. And I know that jersey's not going to survive for me to like it. Or it's got to be like the throwback. And I was kind of
I,
mad at myself because after we got off, I was like, I'm not an Astros fan, but the Astros rainbow jerseys are tight.
they are. I know you said you like the ones the Red Sox wore this weekend, right? The, like bright yellow ones.
Yeah,
Or you
yeah,
didn't?
the for the city ones. I
Yeah,
think
those are
that's a
fresh.
cool concept. I think it'll help with like the sport, but yeah, I think I picked I did I say this in the show? Did I pick the Miami ones?
You didn't. You like
Okay, okay. The
the
neon
with the blue, right?
Miamis. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You can cut that little snippet out of me asking if that's the
Okay.
jersey I picked, but
I have one of the I have the white with the blue trim Jose Fernandez jersey.
I miss
Yeah.
Jose.
I was talking to are we done with this?
Um, yeah, let's wrap it up real quick and then we can go back to what you were gonna say.
Okay.
Yeah, so I pick like super trendy jerseys. Like I picked the Miami jersey with the neon. I just think that that's like a cool, very cultural, like I like things that fit culturally into cities. And so I just think like Miami's doing a better job of that currently. But yeah, it was a great episode and it's really interesting to see a sport that, you and I have grown up with our entire lives and have loved our entire lives through the eyes of somebody who not only has not grown up with baseball, but he fell in love with it in a foreign country.
Mm-hmm. Kind of coming at
So,
it from you know, complete blank slate in the way he's perceiving everything. It was some unique things on, different either ballpark experiences or ways he's perceiving the game or just thoughts on rule changes too that I liked. So
yeah, and like after listening to Eric Sim talk about, baseball in Korea and like growing up in that culture, it's unique to hear him like really embrace the like fun side of baseball and just all around pretty eye-opening.